Hi, I'm Steve Pond from TheWrap. We're here at the Toronto Film Festival, and I'm pleased to welcome director David Mackenzie, actor Sam Worthington from Relay. Welcome to both of you,
Thank you.
and congratulations on a really gripping movie. This is set in the world of whistleblowers, and I think the title refers to like a call center where you never actually hear or speak directly to the person who you're in touch with. I mean, it's a absolutely fascinating world. How much of it is based on truth?
Well, the relay centres certainly do exist, and they still exist. They obviously new technology has sort of taken over, so they have less and less use. So it's primarily for people who have trouble hearing and speaking to communicate. Um, yeah, that is a an important part of the film that they're bound to secrecy, so you can communicate kind of whatever you want there. And the world of the whistleblower it's a very real world. We interviewed quite a few former whistleblowers, and it's a lonely activity, and that sort of is the world we're sort of tapping into. I guess is a sort of loneliness and paranoia, and kind of I have to say courage that whistleblowers have to go through, because most of them don't kind of have an easy experience of it. Obviously, the film is entirely fictional, but it is leaning into those realities. Yeah.
Yeah. So what led you to want to make a film telling this particular story?
Well, it's for me. I've always been interested in outsider characters, and the character played by Riz Ash is very much an outsider character. So I was definitely drawn to that, and this sort of industrial espionage kind of sort of paranoid world is something that I'm also really interested in, the kind of edginess of it. And I'd never made a film in New York. There's a sort of strong New York flavor there, which I was really intrigued by. So those forces all sort of came together, and the sort of the idea of a sort of paranoid thriller with tones of some of those great films from the 70s, and slightly Hitchcockian as well. It feels like that's a world that I can relate to as a filmmaker, and so it was really nice to kind of delve into that territory. But it's a very contemporary film, and the sort of flavors of contemporary New York are something we were kind of tapping into. So that was a kind of balance.
Sam, you play a guy who's sort of an enforcer of sorts who solves problems by whatever means necessary, I suppose, for a large company. I mean, what appealed to you about the project and about that guy?
Well, I'd worked with David on Under the Banner of Heaven, and I liked his style. I liked his approach to filmmaking, where he was searching for authenticity, and he'd just drop you in situations, and all the conventions of traditional filmmaking were kind of didn't exist. And to me, I wanted another experience of that, so I just begged him for a job. And Henchman 1 sounded good. But I think that, that kind of style that David approaches is a very visceral approach, and it kind of matches a thriller in New York City where there's an energy to it, and it's about miscommunication and loyalty and betrayal and all these great themes. But you need, to me, the appeal is David's approach to filmmaking, because it has a different energy than anyone else I've ever met.
What were the keys for you for playing this guy? I mean, I don't imagine you
David
call
just
up.
let me loose, to be honest.
Right.
I think it was a lot of that. It wasn't much on the page, and as always, I discussed with David. I said, look, just let's see where it takes us, and he's very good with me at bringing me back on course in order to tell the bigger story. I just journey, and I like to play and throw out ideas, and that's kind of how we evolve characters. I'd say, or evolve ideas. And then he told me a bit about the guys that he'd interviewed, the actual guys who this is their task, is to be go-betweens between big business and whistleblowers. So those guys do exist. So we kind of had a bit of a framework, but the rest was just put some swagger on it and try to kind of be the bounce between Riz and Lily. And when you're working with actors like that, it's all about playing and discovery.
Yeah. So you didn't call up henchmen to interview them before you played one.
No.
Right. So David, you basically you have a thriller where for the first half of the movie, the main characters never even, not only do they not meet each other, they don't even speak directly to each other. Does that create a certain challenge for you as a filmmaker?
Well, it's interesting because there's a certain amount of chemistry that plays throughout that process, and it's part of the driving narrative, and so you're trying to create chemistry between two characters who are never in the same space together, which is really interesting. And one of the things I sort of expanded elements of the script to actually allow them to spend a bit more time together, and it's a different dynamic when they are together, but yeah, when you're sort of trying to create some engagement between characters where they're literally not even speaking to each other. There's a go between at every level. It's pretty interesting because you're kind of guessing how it's going to come together. So yeah.
And then, but then at the end, you have a big set piece where suddenly everybody is in the same place. Was that liberating to have them all there?
It's definitely a different experience. It's a slightly less kind of anodyne experience. You're working with actors like Sam, who is always looking for the energy and the truth of a situation. Suddenly, having actors working together, it obviously makes a difference. So it's not an intellectual exercise. It's a sort of more visceral exercise.
Sam, did that feel like, more visceral for you when you're not just stuck in a van listening to what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, David said before, New York is almost like a character in this movie, and I'm glad that we actually got to shot in New York and not like, say, Toronto for New York or somewhere like that, which normally happens, because I live in New York. There's an energy of that place. There's an energy of the people that feeds into, potentially giving you more of a drive on your story. And, we shot in actual Times Square. We shot in Newark Airport. We shot in alleyways in New Jersey where we were going at such a pace that it feeds back into the visceral nature of a thriller. Yeah, it's exciting when you kind of let loose a bit. I think, and David doesn't, it's not like we're doing this, the setups come quite fast. So you don't have much time to think. So you just exist. And if you work with people like Riz and Lily, there's so much in their characters that it just bounces. So when you finally get together and you can all bounce together, you're going to create something special.
Great. Well, I think on that note, we need to end, but thank you very much for a terrific film and for coming here to talk about it.
Thank you very much for interesting questions. Thanks a lot. Cheers.